So I was directed by Soumitra to speak about emergence of new viruses. And when Soumitra directs you to do that, you can't deny him. So let me do that over the next 20 minutes or so. Uh, Going back in history, if you look at the history of pandemics, you will see that there have been many bacteria and viruses that have caused much discomfort to humans. And this slide essentially shows you going all the way back to the Antonine Plague, which happened uh, around 165 to 180 AD. That's the first recorded outbreak. In the early history of pandemics, you see mainly uh, plagues. And as we know, plagues came because of rats, and rats carried this bacterium called Yersinia pestis, which was really the cause of many of these plagues. As we moved later, viral outbreaks started becoming popular. Smallpox in 1520 was possibly one of the earliest recorded outbreaks of viruses. This representation here, the size shows you the number of people that died in an outbreak. And really, the most famous of the viral outbreaks remains the Spanish flu of 1918, which was caused in the aftermath of the First World War. As troops were returning from the war, they brought the virus with them to wherever they went. The virus came to India in June of 1918 and caused a huge outbreak in Bombay and in Madras presidencies. And as it moved inwards, it caused a lot of deaths. Came in a second wave in India in September. And this is an outbreak that is estimated to have caused 40 to 50 million deaths across the world. About 18 to 20 million are supposed to have been in India alone. In contemporary times, most people don't realize that HIV has been a continuing pandemic since the 1980s. And it is a pandemic that continues even to this date. It has infected over 75 million people, and it has killed about 35 million people in the process. But as we move in more recent history, you will find that the mortality has decreased, and obviously the mortality has decreased because of new medicines, new technologies, new ways of containing. Remember that when the Spanish flu came, virus was only known as a concept since the late 19th century, but no one had actually seen a virus. The electron microscope was discovered in 1931. So really the first visualization of the virus was somewhere in the mid 1930s. So it was in that context that the Spanish flu took place. But today, if you look at COVID, within 6 months, we have, I don't know, more than 50,000, 60,000 sequences. So what I was essentially saying is that the conditions in which Spanish flu came were very different from the conditions that we face today. At that time, we didn't even know what a virus looked like. Today, in less than 6 months, about 6 months, we have, I don't know, more than 50,000 sequences, full genome sequences available. So we live in very, very different times. But yet we have an outbreak on our hands. So let's try to understand what is this outbreak, how did we get here, and what would we expect in future. All right, so just to put this outbreak in context, as of today, the COVID outbreak has 10.8 million cases worldwide, 521,000 deaths. And if you see this yellow graph here, that's the daily caseload. About 200,000 cases are being added on a daily basis across the world. As far as India is concerned, today India has 627,000 cases, over 18,000 deaths. India is at this point adding a little over 19,000 cases per day with a little over 400 deaths per day. So this outbreak is by no means stabilized yet. So how did it come? Where did it come from? And of course, Soumitra talked about WhatsApp University, which keeps saying that the virus was discovered in a lab. But all the signatures suggest that the virus actually jumped from bats into humans, most likely through an intermediate host, which could be a pangolin. But before that, there are two other coronaviruses that have caused pandemics in this century. The first one is the SARS-1 virus, which came in December 2002. It infected roughly 8,000 people, killing roughly about 10% of those. But this was contained within about 6 to 9 months. The second outbreak is the MERS outbreak, which again jumped from bats through camels into humans. Which is an outbreak that is still continuing. It hasn't, it's not over yet. And by now it has infected over 2,500 people with roughly 860 deaths. There are other coronaviruses that have become endemic to the human population. So if one looks at the sequence of the SARS virus 2, it has 96% homology to some bat viruses that were isolated in eastern China in 2018. It has about 90% homology with the pangolin virus, and we're only about 80% homology with the SARS-1 virus. So the prevailing hypothesis is that this virus jumped from bats into humans, possibly through an intermediate host, and it has evolved in human population for quite a while before it really acquired the ability to transmit between humans very efficiently. All right, so let's look at what's happening around the world. Viruses are about 14% of total human pathogens known. But if you look at emerging pathogens, viruses comprise about 44% of emerging pathogens. Many of the emerging diseases in the last half a century are from zoonotic sources. They are jumping from animals into humans. So these are obviously viruses that are found in animals that may or may not cause disease in animals, but when they jump into a new host, when they spill into a new host, then they cause disease. And in that context, 75% of all emerging viruses are of zoonotic origin. So what are the key drivers for this spillover? The key drivers for these spillovers are climate change and deforestation. And there are two common sources from which these viruses get into humans, and those are bats and mosquitoes. Bats, the viruses can transmit either directly or indirectly through another animal. And the Nipah virus outbreaks in Malaysia, in India, in Siliguri, as well as in Kerala in 2018, are good examples of how ecology is linked to the appearance of viruses. Fruit-eating bats harbor this virus, and they're normally found in forests. But when the forest is cleared for for agricultural land or for human habitation, these bats come into close proximity to human populations, and the fruit that they eat, if that falls to the ground and an animal eats that fruit, that can lead to a crossover of infection. So both from wild animals as well as from domestic animals, the viruses can get from bats into humans. There are very few examples of direct transmissions. But if you go through history and look at influenza viruses, for example, Nipah, Hendra, uh, coronaviruses, all come from some animal source into humans. In 2008, Kate Jones and colleagues published a very important paper in Nature, which showed that, which looked at what are the global trends in infectious diseases uh, that spill over from domestic animals, from wild animals, what is the potential of antimicrobial resistance. And basically, they created some maps, which I show on the left of the screen. And in these maps, you will see that India is very prominent as a potential site from which future outbreaks will come. On the other hand, if you look at the graph on the right, the map on the right, these are really identified emerging pathogens, which was from a paper in Science in 2014. And here you will see that there are viruses found that have been discovered everywhere else, but India doesn't figure on this map. So there is a disconnect, and the disconnect simply is that we have not been very diligent in our surveillance and discovering what's out there. 2017, Nature Communications, the same group that published the 2008 report, now produced a fresh map of global hotspots. And there are two maps here. The top map shows where pathogens have been discovered. The bottom map shows the real picture in terms of the risk. So again, you will see that India and parts of Southeast Asia are highlighted here as potential hotspots for the emergence of new pathogens. Well, how did we come to this situation? And there's an interesting study which was published in PNAS in 2018, which looked at the total biomass distribution on Earth. And they calculated that there is about 550 gigatons of carbon in the biosphere. And out of this 550 gigatons, humans occupy only about 0.06 gigatons of carbon, which essentially says that we are a minority population on this earth. Yet, humans have changed the climate, humans have changed the earth so much that in 2009, the International Union of Geological Societies has started calling our present geological age, as Anthropocene, which means that it is the age of man. Industrialization, climate change, domestication of animals, everything has led to really expanding human population, but the disappearance of many other species on Earth. Well, when we start looking at what are the shifts in mammalian population and the trends over time, and this is from a report published last year in the Proceedings of the Royal Society, it shows that if you plot zoonotic viruses on the y-axis and mammalian species on the x-axis, you will find that it is rodents and bats that have the highest uh, percentage of viral species in them, and they also have species richness among them. However, if you look at the chart on the right and look at numbers of mammals, you will find that humans outnumber livestock, wild animals, everyone, which essentially says that humans are the most natural target for the spillover of viruses from rodents, from bats, and from non-human primates into our population. It's simply a matter of density, it's a matter of numbers. This is kind of a busy slide, but let me walk you through it. Again, if you remember, I told you that another driver is are mosquitoes. Mosquitoes carry malaria, which is a parasite, but mosquitoes also carry many viruses, which they pick from other animal species. Mosquitoes in recent times have been shown to carry Zika virus, they carry dengue virus, and they carry many other viruses. But what is global warming doing is expanding the areas of the world where mosquitoes can now survive. If you look at the chart on the right, the world maps on the right, it essentially shows two species of mosquitoes, Aedes aegypti and Aedes albopictus, which are the two most common species that transmit viruses. The top set of three world maps shows you a situation when a value called RCP, which is used in climate terminology to mean that the global warming will remain less than 2 degrees centigrade as per the Paris Protocol. The bottom shows if the RCP goes, if the temperature goes 5 degrees to 5 degrees centigrade more than the present temperature. And essentially what this shows is that if global warming continues at this level, then nearly 1 billion more people could face exposure to mosquitoes carrying some of these viruses. These people have never seen those viruses. So essentially the viruses will move to higher latitudes. The mosquitoes will move to higher latitudes, and therefore they will expose naive populations to these viruses. The bar graphs on the left bottom essentially shows that it is Western Europe, Eastern Europe, and Sub-Saharan Africa, which are really the most at risk with global warming to receive these viruses. Okay, so the next pandemic could actually come from melting glaciers and melting permafrost. Giant viruses have been discovered from permafrost. There has also been a case of transmission of anthrax from melting permafrost into humans in an Alaskan population. Thankfully, the viruses that have so far been discovered from permafrost are viruses that infect algae, and these are what are known as giant viruses. But a study put on bioRxiv in January this year looked at the ice cores in glaciers. And they looked at two different ice cores, one which was about 520 years old ice, and the other about 15,000 years old ice. And these revealed 33 viral populations based on genomic sequencing. Out of these 33, 28 were new viral genera. How these viruses will affect humans, how will they affect wild animals, domestic animals, birds, we have no idea. We have no knowledge. So this is really very, very alarming that the way the Earth is warming up and glaciers are melting, we may be really releasing many viruses that have really been there for thousands of years. My final slide to show that Sustainable Development Goals, which the whole world has agreed to adhere to by 2030, really fall flat. And if you look at the current pandemic, you will see that pandemic has not just affected SDG 3, which is good health, but it has affected poverty, it has affected hunger, it has affected education, it has affected work environments, industry, it has increased inequalities, it has affected peace, justice, gender equality. So it has really broad-ranging effects. And we must understand that pandemics have a very wide-ranging effects on society, and therefore it's in our interest to really work towards mitigating it. Thank you very much.